Assalamualaikum, salam sejahtera, selamat pagi, very good morning. Mr. David Wallace, Charge d'Affaires for the UK High Commission to Malaysia, Professor Sir Jim Skea, Chair of the IPCC, Professor Datuk Dr. Wan Kamal Mujani, Deputy Vice Chancellor, Research and Innovation, Universiti Kebangsaan Malaysia, Datuk Dr. Tengku Muhammad Azman Sharifuddin, President of the Academy of Sciences Malaysia and the Science, Technology and Innovation Advisor to the Prime Minister of Malaysia, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I'd like to congratulate everyone. I've been told that you have been working very hard and the coffee machine has been very useful throughout the entire conference. And this symposium is organized following the completion of the scoping meeting of the IPCC 7th Assessment Report from 9 to 13 December 2024. And the symposium today, Bridging Climate Science and Policy to Accelerate Action, is important as it brings together leaders, policymakers, and the scientific community to foster dialogue, share insights and collaborate on actionable solutions to address climate change. I would like to thank the British High Commission, Kuala Lumpur, the National University of Malaysia, University of Kebangsaan Malaysia, and other supporting partners for organizing this event. Additionally, I would like to extend my congratulations and sincere thanks to the scientists here today who were involved in the IPCC scoping meeting for its 7th assessment report. Your enthusiasm, dedication, and hard work in shaping the framework for the global climate change scientific report is invaluable. The outcomes of this meeting will serve as the foundation for the next iteration of IPCC reports, and we will play a vital role in shaping global climate policies and actions for years to come. Ladies and gentlemen, as I'm speaking today, we know that Malaysia is witnessing a tragic escalation of the ongoing monsoon season, resulting in catastrophic flooding across several states. In fact, ironically, if it was not because of the serious flood events, I would have been elsewhere in the country and I would not have been here in today's event. More than 150,000 flood victims were forced to evacuate their homes across 9 states in the peninsula. And this is a reminder of the vulnerability of our communities to the impacts of extreme weather events. We have been informed that the number of people who have been victimized by the floods have increased over the last few days, but we are still wary of a second wave from the northeast monsoon that will affect more people across the east coast and beyond. While Malaysia has always been subject to seasonal monsoons, the intensity and frequency of such extreme weather events have significantly increased in recent years. I think one of the most important anecdotal evidence that you can get is when you speak to people who have never experienced flood before. My hometown in Kota Baru, where my parents grew up, is next to the river. We used to have a boat on our elevator, beneath the elevated house that we stayed in. But for other people, and ironically now as we develop and modernize, more and more homes are built on the ground, taking out our adaptation measures that we took for thousands of years, people are not prepared to face floods. And I think that shows how serious things are when people who are not used to these calamities are facing it today. And another part is heat waves. We used to think as Malaysians that we are immune to heat. When we were growing up, I'm sure for a lot of us, we could lay out any time of the day and we didn't really mind. But we have had deaths in Malaysia from heat waves in the last few years. That's no good. And those are, we have numbers detected by the Ministry of Health, but I'm sure that there are other numbers that we do not detect. In this year's Hajj season in the Holy Land in Mecca, 1,500 people were reportedly died due to heat-related illnesses. So, climate change scientific findings is a fundamental component of the global stocktake process under the Paris Agreement, which is designed to assess collective progress towards achieving the goals of the Paris Agreement in addressing global warming. The outcomes of this process, nevertheless, concludes that the current efforts at the global scale are insufficient and cause global warming at 1.1 degrees Celsius. Keeping global warming away from us requires deep, rapid, and sustained reductions in global GHG emissions of 43% by 2030 and 60% by 2035, and achieving net zero by 2050. And this outcome should not be taken lightly by any countries or economies and need to be embedded and aligned with the decarbonization policy at the national level. As a country, Malaysia is committed towards contributing to address the issue of climate change at a global level. We have set various ambitious long-term strategies to address climate change issues and achieve sustainable growth. We have launched several policies, including the new updated National Climate Change Policy, which integrates our commitments under the Paris Agreement. The approach to implementing this policy also differs, in which the focus has shifted from mainstreaming climate change to transitioning towards a low-carbon and climate-resilient development. This year as well, the government has announced that we are committed to achieve net zero by 2050. It is not an easy task, as I'm sure the scientists in this room are aware, for a developing country like Malaysia, but we feel that we need to be a beacon of ambition. And not only, obviously, essentially, that this would contribute towards our efforts to fight climate change, but it will also be a catalyst to attract more green investments and create more green jobs in the country. We are in the midst of drafting our National Climate Change Bill, which we hope to bring to Parliament by next year. And this will be a guide for mitigation measures, and along with the National Carbon Market Policy, will bring our carbon trading initiatives in line with international developments, what has been agreed under Article 6 of UNFCCC, as well as the International Civil Aviation Organization. We are also, and I think this is more urgent and more important, working on our National Adaptation Plan. At the end of the day, Malaysia is a small contributor to GHG emissions worldwide. We need to play our part, but at the same time, if we do not prepare and invest in adaptation, then we will not be able to deal with the changes that will happen, even if we keep global warming between 1.5 to 2 degrees Celsius. As we continue to implement our climate policies, it's essential to recognize that these strategies take into account IPCC scientific assessments that provide the foundation for climate action worldwide. These findings directly shape Malaysia's policy direction to ensure that our efforts are aligned with the global commitments to mitigate climate risk and achieve long-term sustainability. Ladies and gentlemen, the IPCC provides the most comprehensive and authoritative scientific assessments on climate change. It delivers robust, up-to-date, and regionally relevant scientific findings that support countries, including Malaysia, to develop the necessary climate policies and strategies backed by the latest scientific evidence. We recognize this effort by IPCC and is keen to be part of the scientific process. Through initiatives and partnerships such as this symposium, the Ministry of Natural Resources and Environmental Sustainability, or NRES, we demonstrate our deep commitment to support Malaysian scientists in the global climate scientific process under IPCC. Today, we have an exceptional opportunity for climate scientists under IPCC to engage with Malaysian scientists, including many young and early career researchers who are future leaders in climate science. These young minds are the innovators and thinkers who will shape the direction of global climate science in the years to come. It is crucial that we create greater awareness of the IPCC among our scientists and encourage your active participation in the IPCC processes. Your involvement will not only contribute to global climate science, but also enhance our influence in shaping international climate policy. Ladies and gentlemen, I like to repeat this quote by Gus Path, who's an environmentalist, as I'm sure most of us are aware, from the US, which he said, and I quote, "I used to think that the top global environmental problems were biodiversity loss, ecosystem collapse, and climate change. And I thought that with 30 years of good science, we could address these problems. But I was wrong. The top environmental problems are selfishness, greed, and apathy." And I think this is where the moral purpose is very crucial as how we deal with the problems of climate change and environmental degradation as a whole. Science is important. It is an important tool for us to use and to harness. But without that moral purpose, then we might be heading in the opposite direction. We have the nuclear bomb and we have nuclear power plants, both utilizing essentially the same science but for different purposes and with different impact for humanity. And I think the other part, and I have to say this in someone who comes from not a scientific background, and I was given this responsibility, it is crucial, people like us in the public policy sphere, and also scientists, to find ways to create a narrative and to tell the story of how climate change is this imminent crisis that humanity is facing today. Because if we are not able to communicate this, then we will be facing with a lot of, in the words of Donald Trump, fake news. We will be facing with a lot of quote unquote alternative narratives, which is not helpful to our cause. Right? So if we are just convinced of the science, which is I'm sure all of us here are today, but without the ability to tell the story and to communicate, and that's partly the responsibility of public policymakers and politicians like myself, then we will be facing backlash. We've seen that in various, including the developed countries, and I think that is where it is very crucial for us to be able to communicate and tell this in a very accessible manner about what needs to be done and why this is something that is urgent and is at the heart of the survival of humanity. And I think that is a challenge because sometimes, we get, when I go to COP, when I go to all these international conferences, I come back and I get interviewed by the media, and I keep telling my press secretary or my speechwriter, I say, can you, we have to translate this to a language that the common man can understand, because sometimes I find it hard to understand. So I think that is a challenge for us all, but I believe that as long as we are guided by good science and we know the purpose of what we are doing, then I'm sure that we are able to make use of the platform of IPCC and to ensure that the multilateral process to deal with climate change can be effectively utilized. I was asked after COP29, what do I think about the multilateral process, right? But I think that there's no other alternative. The only way we can deal with something this big is by all countries working together. There will be ups and downs, but I believe that this is still the best way for us to deal with the climate crisis. So, I would like again to express my sincere gratitude to the British High Commission. It's amazing. I think one of the lessons that Malaysia should learn is how the UK has been able to decouple your GDP growth from emissions, because that is something that we have to achieve. We still need, to develop. We still need economic growth, but at the same time, we need to do it in a way where there will be minimal impact towards the environment and towards climate. That is the challenge, and I think what the UK has done in terms of renewable energy, in terms of decoupling growth from emissions, that is something that we can all learn from. And again, the UK High Commission, to UKM, and all the supporting partners, thank you for making this symposium possible. And together, let us continue to advance climate science to ensure a better tomorrow for generations to come. Thank you.
Thank you very much.